Georg Tanzler was a German-born doctor who immigrated to the US in 1926. During his youth, he claimed to have received visitations from a dead ancestor, who revealed to him a vision of his one true love, exotic, dark-haired, beautiful. In 1930, while practicing at a Florida hospital under the name of Carl von Kozel, Tanzler met a young Cuban-American woman named Maria Elena Milagro de Hoyos who was ill with tuberculosis. Despite already having a wife, Tanzler immediately recognized Hoyos as his soulmate and did everything he could to save her, but Elena died in October 1931. Devastated, Tanzler built a lavish mausoleum in her honor and visited it every night. In 1933, he went several insane steps further by secretly removing her remains. He restored her skin with wax and plaster of Paris, gave her glass eyes, wired her bones together with coat hangers, and stuffed rags into her chest cavity to maintain its shape. Then he gave her some finishing touches: stockings, jewelry, gloves, a paper tube vagina to enable intercourse, and kept her in his bed for the next 7 years, until Elena's sister finally had him arrested. The case was widely publicized at the time, and Elena's reconstructed body was put on public display before being re-interred in a secret location. Tanzler was ultimately acquitted when the statute of limitations ran out. Deprived of the body, Tanzler used a death mask to fashion another effigy of Hoyos and lived with it until his own death in 1952.
Not my story, but my dad's from back in the ID 90s. Sheriff's deputy gets a call about suspicious activity at an old abandoned mental asylum. Future/X/ posters, probably doing some urban exploring. Goes in with his partner, making lots of noise and banging shit to scare away and kids so they don't have to arrest them and make a scene. Police here, everybody get the hell out. Silence followed by loud moving upstairs, like people scarping furniture against the floor. His partner says to wait here in case any come running out and he'll check upstairs. Cursing to himself about getting jumped by a homeless junkie or needing a tetanus shot for all this. Hear him banging around upstairs, then silence, then fast footsteps. He's speeding walking down the stairs, look of fuck this shit on his face. Keeps telling my dad calmly, but firmly to leave with him. Get out to the cruiser, won't tell dad what he saw, but he assures him to just leave. Never officially find out what it was, but he's led on that it was a ghost and or demon looking thing that was just sitting up there waiting for him. He doesn't spook easily and is actually really into paranormal investigations, ghost hunting, urban exploration, and all other /X/ related stuff, but he will straight up tell you to not go to the place and nothing will get him to go back. It's got all the history of places like that, tortured patients, suicides, suspicious deaths, etc. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's something there. Sort of lame, but it's all I got. Be me. Be doofy teenager with zits. Try to impress girls by leading ghost hunts. Hear about mental asylum. Fuckeyes.wmv. Only problem is people call cops every time we go there. Grab my best ghost/demon costume from Spirit Halloween store. Drag a chair across to the middle of the room right as Bacon Patrol pulls up. Sit in chair, tell brothers and grills to drag heavy iron bed across floor to get their attention. Friends hide. Cop comes up. Sees me. Freezes. Hear squeak. Smell shit. He shit his pants. Goes backstairs in faggy power walk to keep fresh log from falling out. See the two cops crying and holding hands as they run to their car. Never see cops again. Fucked every pussy in a 10-mile radius in that asylum. MFW, it was cash.
Be 7-year-old Anon. Remember having to travel to city for some kind of dental appointment. Remember waiting with mom and dad. Remember them being awfully kind of quiet. Nurse arrives and takes me to a big room. Don't remember what the nurse tells me before the dentist comes in. He says he has to put me asleep with gas. Being the little child that I am, I find it odd but don't question because I think I could. Beat the gas and stay up. They put a mask over my face, then they leave the room. I remember thinking this won't work as I look around the room. But it does, and maybe 2 minutes after they left I'm out. I wake up with a jolt and find myself in darkness with little light. I remember finding myself tied upside down, spread eagled with only pants on. I look ahead at the back of many heads, sitting faced towards something. I look past the heads to the giant screen they're watching. There's a person being cut up on and operated on. All I could do is scream incoherently for my mom and dad. I remember one of the heads turning at some point, and they have a doctor's mask like in Pick related, and they were wearing glasses. It's a man. He brings a finger up to his mouth and says something, but I don't remember it. He turns back around and I am stuck in this theater. At some point I tire myself out screaming and go unconscious. When I wake up again I am back in house with my parents and it is night. I don't know why, but I pull up my shirt to look at something that isn't there. I don't know if what happened was a nightmare or not, and it confuses and terrifies me to the point of not being able to sleep. In the morning I asked Dad and Mom when we got back from the city, and they said yesterday morning. I don't know how to ask them the next question. I don't know the right questions to ask. So I just asked, did anything happen? They say, like what? Anything weird? Ask. Did you have a nightmare, Anon? I only look at Mom. Well? No, I finally say. Then why did you ask? I don't know. Never tell anyone what happened all these years because I wasn't sure if it did happen or not. But the fucking sheer feeling of dread and horror still remain, and I still clearly remember flying to that city with parents and waiting with them before the nurse got me.
Work as nurse. Ambulance friend gets call about fat man in house having a heart attack or something. I go with him. Pull up to his house. As soon as I get out I gag from the smell. Wall of putrid stench hits us, and it's like that episode of SpongeBob where the smell of the ketchup and bean sundae incinerates Patrick's eyebrows. I see what I think is a folded mattress or beanbag chair on the couch. Realize it's a human being. He's naked and has a thin coating of crust on him. Ask if he's alive. Oigi ba chan la kan Han Solo. Translated from Java to English, he said yeah. We try to figure out how to roll him to the ambulance. He won't fit through his own fucking door. We look for and find a sledgehammer and bash the sides of his doorway. It's a cheap ass wooden house. Roll him through, watching the edges. He takes up the entire fucking ambulance backseat. He tells me his foot has been hurting him for weeks. I try to find it, then I fiddled with it. Trying to inspect his ankle, I accidentally turn his foot 180 degrees. All my what? Shocked, I pull his foot away with my hand. His foot slides off his bone like a fucking sock. All of my fuck medical profession anthis.png.dds.exe.text.gif. I blacked out after I realized I was holding a 30 pounds foot in my hand and his toxic odor hotboxed the vehicle. No reaction image will ever do this story justice.
I consider myself rather sane. Hell, everyone thinks that about themselves. But I really believe, despite what my logic and reasoning tell me, that I am sane. At this point, though, I'm not sure what to believe. The problems started when I was about 15. About 6 years ago. I lived what I would call a normal life. There wasn't much going on from what I remember. But in this little time of content in my sad, little life, something started to happen. Everyone, almost collectively, began to lie to me. Now, that is an exaggeration, but not too much of an extreme. It was really only the people I came to trust the most. They claimed it was just me being paranoid, but that was just more of their garbage. I know it. I'm not sure if I had been placed somewhere else or if something had possessed them all, but I couldn't trust anyone anymore. For example, my parents would tell me something like where my watch was or that my phone was broken. And always it seemed to be the exact opposite. It started with simple things like that, but then it got too extreme. They would attempt to stick needles into me, saying that it would decrease the effects of my condition. More of their bullshit. Soon, I could barely trust them with anything. I stopped eating anything they made me and I would barely drink any water. They showered me that false concern, all trying to get me to trust them. More bullshit. Eventually, they couldn't get me to do anything. I wouldn't eat or drink a damn thing they gave to me. They couldn't trick me anymore. Shortly after my retaliation against them, they got doctors to come to the house. Of course, they fed me the same crap that my parents did. That I was sick, wasn't well and needed to get better. That's when they drugged me, all to get me out of the house. I remember as my parents watched me dragged out of the house. My mother was trying to cry and my father had a face of heartbreak. It still pisses me off. I honestly don't remember me and the doctors getting out to go inside of the hospital. I do, however, remember being thrown within my cell, wearing a straitjacket. You know, as odd as it sounds, the padded walls we fun to bounce off of. For the first few hours, I screamed at them, demanding my freedom. They claimed they couldn't hear me when I asked them, but we both know what a lie that was. I think what bothered me the most there was the inmate across the hall. She, I'll just call it Brune, was in a padded room straight across from me. I remember seeing Brune every once in a while. Brune constantly exhale on the glass of the door and write a message with his/her nose. All I knew about Brune was long brown hair and a face that never stopped smiling, almost like he knew something you didn't. The worst part was that Brune was the only one I could trust. Well, maybe being drugged and then forced to eat their crud, but still not a high note. I guess what bothered me the most about Brune wasn't that he lied, but that he never told the whole truth. I'd ask what Brune saw, and the figure would reply, with a small message on the glass, equipment. Maybe that was as disturbing as the fact that Brune seemed to hear me, but not vice versa. Now looking back at it, a lot of strange things happened at that place. The most notable being the day I escaped. Brune was being particularly feisty that day, but wasn't willing to answer my questions. Anytime I'd ask one, Brune would look towards me and shake her/his head, laughing. I think that's the only time I heard my friend beyond the cell. That demented, almost hate-filled laugh. Either way, I began to get angry, as this continued for hours. This laugh. I yelled at Brune, "Let me out of this place, please." I began to cry, falling to my knees. I hadn't asked for this. As tears fell from my eyes, I heard a smash of glass and, without getting up, I tilted my head skyward. And there, in the window with a bloody face filled with glass stood Brune, doing that same smile. I heard a click as Brune laughed and began to run down the hallway, towards the doctors, I believe. I noticed now that my door was slightly cracked open and with the help of my foot, I managed to fully open it. I remember that feeling. That freedom. Best I've ever felt, no doubt. I rushed the opposite direction, not looking at the scenery. I had a clear goal ahead. And, after a few turns and dead ends, I found the exit doors. I sprinted towards them, and even though it hurt to hit them at full force, I loved seeing the outdoors again. But that's not why I'm writing this. I'm not writing this because I escaped from a hellhole and somehow got back on my feet. This story does not end there. After a little while, I began to look back at what occurred. Maybe my parents deserved an apology. Maybe I did need help. It really began to dawn on me that I could have been wrong. Just about a week ago, I got my bicycle and began to ride it to where I thought I had lived so long ago. I needed to apologize for how I acted. For my defiance. Everything. And on my way there, something happened. I rode by the hospital, mental ward, I had been kept at. I knew it from the outside view that I saw on that day of blissful redemption. And that's when I really realized how crappy the place was. It even had a condemned sign on it. And just then a local walked by. Of course, I had to ask. "Hey," I said to the man, "how long has this place been closed?" And he looked me dead in the eyes and said something I will defend as truth on my deathbed. "The old asylum? It's been closed for about 30 years.